Mr. President, I want to first thank the entire UAE team and all the other parties in the Secretariat for the extraordinary work over the past 2 weeks to finalize this first global stocktake. I think as you look around this room and you look at the number of people who are here, it underscores the complications, the difficulties, the fundamental challenge of bringing 200 countries together and finding consensus. I think that everybody here should be pleased that in a world of Ukraine and the Middle East war and all the other challenges of a planet that is foundering, this is a moment where multilateralism has actually come together and people have taken individual interests and attempted to define the common good. That is hard. It's the hardest thing in diplomacy. It's the hardest thing in politics. And I think everybody here should feel good that while all of us can find a paragraph or sentences or sections where we would have said it differently, where we would have liked it not to appear, we would have liked something else to appear. But in a multilateral venue, to have as strong a document as has been put together, I find, is cause for optimism, cause for gratitude, and cause for some significant congratulations to everybody here. I am in awe of the spirit of cooperation that has brought everybody together. And I think the applause that we just saw for the AOSIS states is a clarion call to all of us about our obligation and responsibility over these next months to make sure we're reaching as far as we can to implement as fast as we can. So I thank the UAE team and the Secretariat for pulling everybody together, for having the courage to put some things on the table for the first time ever. It is a document that reflects 2 years of work by all parties with over 700,000 pages of inputs from every constituency, from every part of the globe. And I'd particularly like to thank two individuals, Farhan Akhtar and Harold Winkler, who sort of quietly behind the scenes provided leadership in the technical assessment over the last 18 months. Now, while nobody here will see their views completely reflected in a consensus document of so many nations, the fact is that this document sends very strong messages to the world. First, the document highlights that we have to adhere to keeping 1.5 degrees within reach. That is the North Star. And we, therefore, must do those things necessary to keep the 1.5, everything we can to achieve this goal. And in particular, it states that our next NDCs will be aligned with limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees. I think everyone has to agree. This is much stronger and clearer as a call on 1.5 than we have ever heard before. And it clearly reflects what the science says. To keep 1.5 degrees within reach, we have to urgently peak greenhouse gas emissions and reduce them by a minimum of 43% by 2030 and 60% by 2035. That is a goal that can keep us on track. The direction to triple renewable energy, double energy efficiency, phase down unabated coal power, halt and reverse deforestation and degradation by 2030, and substantially reduce non-CO2 emissions by 2030 are all foundational to our efforts for the next 7 years and beyond. And for the first time in the history of our regime, the decision, supported by all nations of the world, calls for transitioning away from fossil fuels in energy systems so as to achieve net zero by 2050. That is clear. And we would have liked Clearly, many people here would have liked clearer language about the need to begin peaking and reducing fossil fuels in this critical decade, but we know this was a compromise between many parties. In particular, we would highlight that the use of any transitional fuels needed to be aligned with 1.5 degrees, which means if people adhere to that, that they will play a limited and temporary role in facilitating the effort to largely phase out fossil fuels in our energy systems by 2050, with abatement technologies focusing on hard-to-abate sectors. On adaptation, COP28 has successfully delivered a framework for the global goal on adaptation that will provide critical momentum to accelerate actions and increase resilience. It sets out in much greater detail how we will pursue and achieve the global goal on adaptation and how those efforts will be supported in coming years. On finance, this outcome makes abundantly clear that we must transform the international financial system to pursue and achieve our climate goals. The global stocktake underscores that we must continue to drive investments in climate action at all levels, put policies in place to incentivize change, and shift finance away from the things that put our shared prosperity at risk. And it makes clear that we will stand by and support our partners in developing countries every step of the way as they take ambitious steps to build clean energy systems and resilient futures for everyone. Mr. President, both the Paris Agreement and the global stocktake decision that we just adopted emphasize the importance of preparing and updating long-term strategies to reduce emissions and enhance resilience. 2 years ago, the United States and China committed in our Shanghai Joint Statement to update our long-term strategies by the Glasgow COP, which we both did. Most recently, we both issued the Sunnyland Statement, which we hope made a positive contribution to this COP. And today, I would join with Xi Jinping and Chinese delegation in announcing that the United States and China both intend, based on the many initiatives set out in the global stocktake decisions, we will again update our long-term strategies, and we invite other parties to join us in doing so. This decision and other key decisions of the CMA, including the global goal on adaptation, establish critical work going forward to give effect to the global stocktake's recommendations. We look forward to working with all of our partners here to achieve these ambitions. And again, I say how deeply impressive I believe this multilateral effort is. I thank everybody here. The spirit of cooperation is palpable and significant, and I think a major statement by all countries participating about what we would like to see in so many other sectors of global relationships in this day and age. I thank all for the efforts here and for what we have accomplished. Thank you, Mr. President.